All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Severio Rizzo. I'm on the working group for the housing conference. And hopefully you guys enjoyed the powwow aerobics that was held right before this. The next session is from Indigenous Services Canada, housing update. So we'll have Siva Appiah, the Senior Housing Officer at Indigenous Services Canada, on, as well as we have Gail Obediah, the Property Manager, Six Nations Housing, and Derek MaGregor is here as well. He is the Infrastructure and Housing Specialist at WBAFN Tribal Council. All right, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat box, and we'll take those at the end. Thank you. Go ahead, Siva.
All right, thank you, Severio. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining me on another successful annual conference today. My name is Siva Appiah, Senior Housing Officer with Indigenous Services Canada, Ontario region. The purpose of the presentation today is to highlight some of the programs and services provided by Indigenous Services Canada to support First Nations housing, particularly in Ontario region. In today's presentation, we'll also highlight two innovative projects. Gail Obediah from Six Nations of the Grand River First Nation and Derek MaGregor from Waabnoong Bemjiwang Association of First Nations will speak to you directly about their respective projects. So let's go to the PowerPoint. Over the next 15 to 20 minutes, I will provide you with a brief update on how Indigenous Services Canada is working under the COVID-19 restrictions. I will talk about how Indigenous Services Canada support First Nations in Ontario to build and maintain homes for First Nation people living on reserve. I will review the investment details from year 2016 to present, and we will have a quick glance into the future. I will also provide you an update on the Ministerial Loan Guarantee program, and then we will have a video presentation by Gail and Derek. Let's go to slide number 3. Due to COVID-19 pandemic, as with all other employers in Canada and worldwide, Indigenous Services Canada has implemented a number of precautionary measures to keep everyone safe, as well as to continue the business of providing the much needed programs and services to First Nations. As such, Indigenous Services Canada has implemented a policy on travel for essential purposes only. All Indigenous Services Canada employees are now equipped to work from home. Employees continue to be available for their clients during the normal business hours. ISC employees are now available by phone, email, and on Microsoft Teams for virtual meetings. For the most part, the business is as usual. Slide number 4. Let's look at how we support First Nations in Ontario with their housing needs. Through the annual formula-based allocations, Indigenous Services Canada support all First Nations in Ontario. This is normally known as minor capital funding, and approximately $23 to $24 million is invested annually in 127 First Nations in Ontario. Through the Ministerial Loan Guarantee program, we support First Nations when borrowed funds are needed to support on-reserve housing. The targeted funds are available time to time through special initiatives such as the Budget 2016 and Budget 2017, where additional funds were allocated to address immediate housing needs and the enhancement of capacity in First Nation communities. Low-income residents are supported with shelter allowance through the Ontario Works program in order to cover shelter charges in communities where a rental policy is implemented. We also provide assistance for emergency repairs through our emergency management program when homes are damaged due to natural disasters such as flooding or forest fire events. In slide number 5, we will review the targeted investments since 2016. Through the Budget 2016 allocation, approximately $460 million was allocated to address immediate housing needs in First Nation communities over a 2-year period. Through Budget 2017, another $600 million was allocated to address the immediate housing needs in First Nation communities over a 3-year period. As you can see in the table, over a 3-year period starting with 2016, Ontario region received approximately $140 million. These funds were invested to support the construction of approximately 600 new homes, renovate 725 housing units, and to enhance capacity through 183 projects. In 2019-20,
the rails here.
In 2019-20, which is the second year of Budget 2017 investment, Ontario received approximately $28.6 million out of the available national budget of $200 million. This money was provided to all Ontario First Nations using an enhanced formula allocation methodology. In 2019-20, we also allocated an additional $25 million resulting from a Human Rights Tribunal decision which required the department to allocate all available housing monies to housing projects, where reallocation of housing monies into other asset categories was not permitted. Again, this money was allocated to First Nations using an enhanced formula allocation methodology. In 2020-21, similar to the 2019-20 fiscal year, we invested approximately $53 million to support unreserved housing and enhance capacity. So in total, approximately $247 million was invested through the targeted investments to support housing on First Nation communities since 2016. We'll go to slide number 6. Let's have a forecast into the future. In terms of the number of programs we offer, we don't anticipate any big changes, if any at all. That includes, we expect no changes to the minor capital funding. We expect no changes to the Ministerial Loan Guarantee program, and no changes to the shelter allowance through the Ontario Works program, and no changes to the emergency management program. However, we do anticipate there may be changes in the targeted program funding category. As you may know, our targeted funding program under Budget 2017 authority has ended on March 31st, 2021. If any changes are announced, including the renewal of the targeted funding authority or new authority, it is anticipated to start with the Budget 2021 announcement, scheduled for April 19, 2021. If any new funding or programs are announced on April 19, 2021, the department will be required to do a Treasury Board submission to access those funds. Upon Treasury Board approval and the approval of the terms and conditions, we'll have the spending authority through the assignment of budget lines, which will enable us to enter into funding agreements with First Nation partners and implement the new programs. The cycle will end with the required reporting on how the funding was spent as per the Treasury Board approved terms and conditions. So in terms of the timelines, so the budget is expected to be announced on April 19th, 2021. If any funding is announced for unreserved housing, the department will immediately proceed to preparing a Treasury Board submission. So by end of summer 2021, we would expect the Treasury Board submission be approved. And then we'll have to enter into funding agreements and program implementation by fall of 2021, the earliest. So just to give you some timelines, even if money was announced on April 19th, 2021, we do not anticipate the spending of that money until fall of 2021. So what happens until then? We do anticipate that the approximate $25 million will be available for housing in targeted funding for Ontario. This is expected to be confirmed shortly. These funds are stemming from the Human Rights Tribunal decision that we talked about earlier in slide number 5. In terms of what else is in the forecast, we do have the 10-year First Nations National and Related Infrastructure Strategy. I know there is a session dedicated to the 10-year strategy, which is being led by Assembly of First Nations. But let's look at this from a very high level perspective. Slide number 7. This slide is a bit outdated. However, for our purpose here, the information largely remains the same. The government had made a commitment to develop a national housing strategy for all of Canada, which is being led by Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation. Through the nationwide consultation, it was determined that First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people require a distinction-based housing strategy for each one of these target groups. So what you see in the purple on your left is a summary on National Housing Strategy, which has now been completed. CMHC took the government lead to complete the strategy. Approximately $10 billion over 10 years has been committed to achieve the goals under the national strategy. The gray box you see on your right is the distinction-based housing strategy. There are 3 strategies. First Nations strategy is being co-developed by Indigenous Services Canada and Assembly of First Nations with many other partners. The strategy is now completed. The partners are now working on costing and implementation plan. The government had made an interim commitment to spend $600 million over 3 years, which has ended on March 31st, 2021. As talked about in the previous slide, further investment may be announced in Budget 2021 on April 19th, 2021. The second strategy for your information is the Inuit strategy, which has now been completed as well, and the government has made a 10-year commitment for a total of $640 million. The third strategy is Métis strategy, which has also been completed, and the government has made $500 million funding commitment over a 10-year period. Okay, let's go to slide number 8. The Ministerial Loan Guarantee Program. So one of many tools available to First Nations to access funding for housing on reserve. In most instances, financial institutions will not take the risk of providing a loan for housing on reserve unless there is a guarantee of payment in the case of a default. Through the Ministerial Loan Guarantee Program, loan financing can be guaranteed by the minister for the construction, acquisition, or renovation of houses on reserve. Let's go to the next slide, slide number 9. In Ontario, most First Nations use the Ministerial Loan Guarantee Program. Currently, we have 4,810 housing units under the Guarantee Program, which involves the administration of 723 Ministerial Loan Guarantee Agreements, for a total of $327 million in outstanding mortgages under the Ministerial Loan Guarantee Program. Slide number 10. This is the exciting part of the presentation where we get to witness some of the successful projects through our investments. Today, we have chosen to showcase 2 innovative projects: the Tiny Homes Project by Six Nations of the Grand River, and the Circle Rider Program for Home Maintenance by Waabnoong Bemjiwang Association of First Nations. First, we will start a short 10-minute video for each of the projects. Following that, we have Gail and Derek to answer any questions. Let's start the video from Six Nations of the Grand River, followed by the video from Waabnoong Bemjiwang Association of First Nations. Here's the video.
Yetini walado ne ongosua, nyawa sengoendeso. Six Nations of the Grand River Territory is the largest First Nation reservation in Canada. It is located along the Grand River, near the Lake Ontario and Lake Erie boundaries, south of Brantford. Six Nations is the only reserve in North America where all of the Haudenosaunee nations, also known as the Iroquois nations, which are the Mohawk, Cayuga, Onondaga, Oneida, Seneca, and Tuscarora nations, have created a community together. This community land base is approximately 18,000 hectares of land. The total population of the Six Nations membership is currently sitting at 27,589 members, with approximately 12,895 living on reserve. Although Six Nations is the largest reservation in Canada, the majority of the land base is under possession by individual band members, leaving a smaller land base for community development. Six Nations Housing is very pleased to present to you today a short video showcasing our recent innovative project of tiny homes, which is the first of its kind on First Nations in Ontario. Saigo, my name is Gail Obediah. I'm the property manager for Six Nations Housing. Our housing director, Karen Bomberry, is also here with us today as part of this presentation. We are very fortunate that Six Nations Housing Department consists of a wide range of talented and skilled professional staff whom work collectively to improve the living conditions of all members of the community by providing the ways and means to access housing and housing-related essentials through various financing programs, rental accommodations, and construction advisory services. Our existing housing rental properties within our portfolio are the 50-unit elder building located at 37 Sunrise Court, 17-unit elder building and 7-unit townhouses. We have 12 log cabins for our elders located at 2122 4th Line, a 15-unit elders building and our 3-bedroom townhouse units at 28 Bicentennial and 30 Bicentennial Trail, the 40 block of townhouses located on Bicentennial Trail, Pine Crescent, and Oak Street, as well as a 9-unit on Bicentennial Trail. Our 2 multi-unit apartment buildings, 6-unit at 100 Bicentennial Trail and 8-unit at 200 Bicentennial Trail. We also have a 6-unit townhouse at 1848 4th Line. And finally, the location of our newest housing development, Herald Road, the 5-unit, 3-bedroom townhouse. The area outlined in the purple is the location of our tiny home project. The design of the tiny home was created with accessibility in mind for all community members. The entrance hallway is wide enough for wheelchair or walker if need be, and you can see the standard wheelchair circle allowance is outlined in the bathroom. There is no loft in these homes like you would typically see in a tiny home. This was due to keeping these units accessible to all community members. We can't all be the triathlon and climb the ladder up to our bed at the end of our day. The home is not built on a trailer either, like you would see as part of a typical tiny home build. Due to housing regulations, we had to build these homes on a foundation. We chose to do a slab-on-grade construction with the foundation wall, and we installed radiant in-floor heating as an energy-efficient alternative. And the warmth in these units is unbelievable and very comfortable. Let's take a walk in. As we enter through the door, you see the living space ahead. The orientation of the houses have the living space towards the back to take full advantage of the natural light during the day. This promotes energy efficiency by allowing as much natural light into the space during the day, keeping the use of lights to evening only. We have provided a kitchenette in the living space, offering all that is needed for a single person to prepare meals. The bathroom is spacious to provide the extra space needed if one is needing room for accessibility equipment. And the bedroom is a good size, offering a stacking washer-dryer combo unit. Can it be any more convenient than that? In 2019, the community plan was updated and it outlined community priority and goals in 8 sections. The built environment section contains housing with the goal of having safe and comfortable housing options for all. As part of the timeline objectives, a need for smaller housing units for single people, elders, and people living with disabilities was noted. Lifestyle changes and the increase of many people residing on their own is a reflection of this growing dynamic. In 2016, Director of Housing Karen Bomberry applied to Indigenous Services Canada for funding for a 6-unit housing complex on behalf of Six Nations Housing. In 2018, Housing received notice from Indigenous Services Canada that as part of the 2017 budget for on-reserve housing, we would be receiving monies to build the 6-unit housing complex that was applied for. However, at the time we were building the 5-unit townhouse you see in behind the tiny homes here. Therefore, due to the existing 5-unit project that was under construction, Six Nations Housing requested to change the scope of work from a 6-unit multi-unit to the 8 tiny homes project you see here. Prior to this, Six Nations Housing was considering a tiny home project and had previously engaged in discussions and initiated research based on the concept of the tiny homes. Our department had spent some time visiting a tiny home project site, developing ideas, and engaging in conversations with other agencies interested in apprenticeship programs. Brainstorming sessions had been happening between housing staff and interested agencies. However, at the time, the think tank sessions were as far as this concept went. So when the opportunity came up to change the scope of work from the 6-unit housing complex listed in the statement of work, the ideas of the tiny homes was brought to the forefront and the tiny homes project was born. Six Nations Housing chose to hire a contract employee and created a construction manager position to complete the project. We hired a contract employee and we utilized the on-the-job training initiative program with CMHC to provide training to work within Council's policies and procedures while utilizing their experience in construction management to build our project within our budget and schedule. Six Nations Housing also entered into a partnership with our local company, Grand River Employment and Training, and Fanshawe College to create an apprenticeship program where the students would then be involved in a tiny house build to further develop their skills. Unfortunately, the apprentice program facilitator was not able to stay on the project. Therefore, our apprentices were not able to continue. With the desire to still train some youth, we worked with Grand River Employment and Training again to find a youth that would fit into the HIFNI program with CMHC and brought in a community youth to work on the job and learn construction and construction management skills.
Scano. My name is Karen Bomberry, Director of Six Nations Housing. First, thanks to Gail Obediah and Becky Mentor for creating this tremendous video compilation shared today. In 2019, the Tiny Home Project commenced. However, we were met with one of the biggest challenges, a worldwide pandemic. With determination, a hardworking team on the ground, and the resourceful Six Nations Housing team, the project was completed and occupancy of the units began on July 1st, 2020. Also in July 2020, we celebrated the Tiny Home Project with a socially restricted grand opening and ribbon cutting ceremony, which included Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Indigenous Services, Pam DeMoff, with a congratulatory address to Six Nations. The need for housing, as we all know, is prevalent in all First Nations communities, as we witness and each one of us are part of the ever-changing landscape required to meet those needs. With hard work, perseverance, support, and most importantly, respect, our commitment to our community is to provide safe, affordable housing options. Nyawa to all the participants today and for this opportunity to share.
Thank you. Gail, did you want to take a minute to introduce yourself before we go to the next video? Gail, I think you're on mute. Okay.
Yes, I got myself mute now. There you go. Hi, everybody. I'm Gail Obediah, the property manager from Six Nations Housing. It's a real honor to be a part of this presentation today and to have been asked to share our tiny home project. We do have a lot of properties here in Six Nations, and the tiny house project was quite an exciting project. And we had a wonderful time working with you, Siva, on the project and having the support of Indigenous Services Canada along the way. And all of the other supports that we had around the community and the different agencies that we worked with, as mentioned in the video. Nyawa.
Thank you, Gail. It was a pleasure working with you on that project. Can we go to the next video then?
The Housing Maintenance Circuit Rider Program was developed in partnership with Waabnoong Bemjiwang Association of First Nations, Indigenous Services Canada, Canada Mortgage, Housing Corporation, and the 6 member nations. Jamie King, our Circuit Rider trainer. Shane Conton, Housing Maintenance and Data Collector. And Shane McGregor, our Circuit Rider Assistant. Work with our member nations to complete assessments of residential buildings, complete minor repair and maintenance work with the tenants and community's maintenance workers, produce how-to videos. Let's do a walkthrough of a building assessment with Jamie King, our Circuit Rider trainer.
All done downstairs. We're just going to take footage just everything so that we could show Derek, our supervisor.
All right.
Yeah. So you see the door off center, and I have to be rehung. There's a little bit of gapping, a little bit of light through. You can see heat loss.
Too often, the minor repairs and maintenance issues become severe over time and contribute to major repairs or replacement of homes. Through this pilot project, the partners are working to identify and correct minor repairs as soon as possible while building local and tenant capacity to better maintain homes. As you all know, home maintenance is a key step to ensuring longevity of the housing stock and achieving value for dollar. Any minor repairs or maintenance issues are completed by the pilot project team and the community's maintenance worker before they become a major repair or health hazard to the tenants. Once an assessment is complete, the First Nation and the tenant are provided with a list of deficiencies and a cost estimate for completing the work. Through this pilot project, we will be producing 23 how-to videos, from how to paint a room, to replacing a drywall, to adding flooring to your basement. These videos help to keep the maintenance costs down and keep tenants healthy. Especially during COVID restrictions, we do not need to send someone to complete minor maintenance work. training and educating the maintenance workers and the tenants is a major part of the pilot project to build capacity and sustainability. Respecting the COVID-19 restrictions and guidelines by the public health authorities, training is provided virtually in class or on the job site. The community is also provided with a scope of work and a cost estimate for any major renovation projects, with support finding a reputable contractor at a reasonable price. How-to videos are popular in our communities. Here is a demonstration video by a hero of our own, Jamie King.
Ani Bojo, Jamie King Jidikazan. I work for Waabnoong. I am the circuit rider trainer. Today we are going to be changing a filter today. So one thing you know about a filter is the direction that you need it. Normally the filters have little arrows, and usually there's indicators on your furnace for which direction you want to face for the arrows. This right here, we have a nice permanent marker label for the airflow. So, quite simple actually. It just slides out. And it should come out quite easy. Measure this side. And it just takes a little pulling. As you can see, this right here needs a change. And you can see the dog hair and everything into it. Just dirt, dandruff, sediment, anything like that. That gets all caught up there and it gets filtrated for the furnace. So as you can see, here's a clean one and here's a dirty one. So we'll put that aside. Arrow. Slide it in. Voila.
Thank you for watching our presentation today. If you wish to get more information, please feel free to reach out to Derek MaGregor at Waabnoong Bemjiwang Association of First Nations.
Okay, Derek, did you want to take a minute to introduce yourself, and then we'll go to some questions, and I'll pass it on to Severio for questions.
Yes, thanks, Siva. This project here was dreamed up by me and Siva a few years ago at a coup conference, actually, and both of us find ourselves sitting at the same table, and we're just doing some brainstorming, and we thought of this idea. And Siva was really instrumental in getting it going. We got really good buy-in with our communities, our 6 First Nations, not 6 First Nations, like where Gail's from, but we have 6 reses. It's picked up a lot of traction. As a matter of fact, we have 3 guys in our circuit rider program training people. They're in Waabnoong First Nation right now, doing a full training seminar all week. Have about 4 people that they're training, as well as tenants. So as Gail has mentioned, I'm extremely honored that Siva asked me to sit in on this presentation and show what we're up to. All good.
Thanks, Derek. So, okay, back to you, Severio, for any questions.
Okay. Hello, everyone. We have a few questions here. The first one is for Siva. Basically just asking if all the information you provide is for Ontario only, and if there's information available for other parts of the country similar to what you presented.
Sure. So if you looked in slide number 5, there is some national information with regards to the budget and the special initiatives. So the budget 2016, $460 million was the national budget, and out of that, Ontario region received $102 million. So the remaining budget went to other regions. Definitely, there is a senior officer in every region. If you're not sure who that is, you can contact me. I can connect you with the senior officer in your particular region. But the programming should be very similar in other regions, but may not be the exact.
Okay.
The only thing that I think might be different is the shelter allowance under the Ontario Works program, because in Ontario, we follow the Ontario program and make it available for people living on reserve, same as the off-reserve residents.
Okay, great. Thanks, Siva. Another question for Gail, I guess, in regards to the tiny home project. I guess people are looking for more info in terms of the project and funding for the project. I guess maybe some of the, what kind of construction was it and all that sort of stuff. So I don't know if there's any details you want to share on that. You may have touched on it a bit during the session, but I'll let you go here.
A lot of that information was in the video. We did receive funding from Indigenous Services Canada to do the tiny homes. And I also accessed some dollars from CMHC to pay part of the contract monies for our construction manager. And that was with the on-the-job training initiative with CMHC. We also accessed the HIFNI program, which is training the youth, from CMHC for once the apprentices weren't able to do the job, we brought on a youth from the community to work with the construction manager and learn some of the construction skills as well as construction management skills. We just did a partial funding for that one, as the youth that we had brought in didn't stay on the job completely and finish out. So we only used part of the dollars for that particular one. And that was basically all of the funding we received for our project. And the construction was slab on grade, and it was just standard wood frame construction in the house. The thought was that we would do the design to be very simple, and that it would be repeated 8 times so that the apprentices could really learn their skills through the whole project. So we did very simple, regular stick-built construction. There was nothing. The only high-tech thing about it was our in-floor radiant heat. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you, Gail. I do have another question for Derek in regards to the DIY videos. If I guess people are asking if they're available to be shared with others. Would the, or the, I don't know if you would need the community's you know, permission or your permission. I don't know, but yeah, I'll leave that question with you.
Yeah, for sure. We're developing these how-to videos. We only got to 1 so far. We're working on about 5 right now. And then like Siva mentioned, or we mentioned in the presentation, we're working on about 23 to 25. It's getting a lot of traction. We're getting a lot of people asking us, could you do one on this? Could you do one on that? So 23, 25 may turn into 50. So this is something we're really excited about. The guys love doing it. It's a learning curve for us to how to develop these videos. But yeah, we're definitely looking to share to everybody.
Okay, great. Thank you for that, Derek. And I think that is it for the questions. So I would just like to thank Siva, Gail, and Derek for their presentation. Gail and Derek, great projects. You know, great to hear about them. And Siva, the information that you provided is very important, and people are interested in that as well. Thank you again for the presentation, and we will have some artwork for you. You can see it here. That will be sent to you individually, show as our appreciation for your presentation. So again, we'd just like to thank you very much. And I'd like to ask everybody to copy down the code for the Passport to Prizes for this session. So you can see on the screen, the code is healthy. And that is it, I believe. So we have 1 more or 3 more sessions after this, and they start in about 15 minutes time. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Severio.
Thank you, Severio, and thanks everyone for listening.